I'm Randy Cherney, the host of Snack Break from Source. Every Monday through Thursday, we take 20 minutes to cover hot topics in commercial architecture and design, including new product releases, designer stories, industry leaders, and the impact of design. If you're tuning in live, know that you're automatically on mute, but you can use the chat feature there to ask questions. You can also find a video recording on demand at tothesource.com, or you can subscribe to our audio on Apple or Spotify podcast by searching Source Snack Break. Today is a Tuesday, so we are talking Transparency Tuesday, and we are talking about the impact you can make as a designer and as a consumer in general. And we are talking to Kel Moody from, Cultivating Capital, and we are talking B Corps. I'm super excited. Before we get started, hey, Kel.
Hi.
Hi, it's so nice to see you. Before we talk about B Corps, can you tell us a little bit about your background, how you got to be at Cultivating Capital, and what Cultivating Capital does?
Absolutely. So yeah, nice to be here. Thanks for having me. So I have been working with Cultivating Capital for about a year, but I've been involved in the B Corp community since about 2016. I also serve on the board for our local B Corp community. It's called B Local PDX. So they're actually like little groupings of regional B Corps across the country. And our community here in Portland is pretty huge and pretty engaged. So we're super lucky to have such a wonderful amount of B Corps here, but also just like very engaged and connected. So yeah, I've been on the board for a couple of years now and focused specifically on doing like events for the B Local community. But I really enjoy being part of the board and kind of helping out with the local organizing of the B Corp community.
Sweet. And so what does your company Cultivating Capital do?
Yeah, so Cultivating Capital is a B Corp consultant. So we work with clients to help them through the B Corp certification process. We have a couple different ways that we work with people, everything from full service, meaning we like basically do everything for you, collect, basically what you have to do is provide the data to us and we analyze it and input it into the BIA and walk through it with you, and then go through the whole certification process with you as well. And then we also do things like coaching programs where you can kind of do it more self-guided and have the resources that we provide you to help you through the process. Kind of anywhere in between that as well. We can customize stuff.
Yeah. So you're like our B Corp like helpers.
Yeah.
Okay. So, and I do want to say, designers, for those of you tuning in live, all of the photos that I'm featuring are all from architects and designers around the country who are B Corp certified. So that's super cool. As an architecture firm, you can be B Corp certified. So I'm very excited about that. So let's get into it. What is a B Corp and what does it mean? And what is the sort of history of having being a B Corporation?
Yeah, so it was started in 2006. Started by a few guys that came from like corporate America, and they were like, we know we can do better. Like businesses have a lot of power. They have a lot of capacity to create change, and we can't just rely on our governments to make the world a better place. So we all feel, they, at the time I'm speaking as them, we feel like this responsibility to create some sort of structure to help businesses guide them through a process of taking their impact more seriously. So kind of the idea is that the triple bottom line business practice, that you equalize people, profit, and planet. And you actually have to write that into your articles of incorporation or into your corporation documents, and make sure that you are actually holding yourself to that standard. The idea is like a stakeholder model as opposed to like a shareholder model. So you're really considering the community, you're considering the environment, you're considering your impact on biodiversity and chemical use and your carbon footprint, but also how do you treat your employees? How do you engage with your local community via, volunteering or charitable contributions? So it really does quite a broad look and very, very deep look at the same time into pretty much everything you're doing as a business. And the idea is to really help you provide a framework for improvement. It's not just are you checking these boxes, yes or no? Part of it is that, it is an assessment, but really the idea is to kind of like urge you to consider doing certain things if you're not already doing them. And if you're, looking for ways to improve, it's the BIA, the B Impact Assessment, is a really good place to look for, like, oh, okay, like here are some things that I could be doing. So I think as a whole, like, yes, it is taking you through this assessment, but really what it's doing is kind of helping you figure out how you can be a better business.
Excellent. And so one of the things I think is really interesting about B Corps and is sort of critical is that unlike a C Corp, which is a corporation, a B Corp, you really do have to bake it into the legal structure of your business so that the measuring of your impacts and having a positive impact on your community, on your staff, on the environment continues regardless of who the leadership is. Is that correct? So like you could have a great CEO who's really believing in B Corp certification, things like that. And if they leave and they haven't gotten B Corp, then the next person can do basically whatever they want. And so by being B Corp certified, that means that regardless of who's CEO, regardless of leadership, these values will continue in the company.
Exactly. Yeah. So there is a legal requirement for getting B Corp certified. So it's beyond just doing the assessment. You actually have to go through the legal requirement, which is part of the points that you can achieve. But it is, you have to do it within the first 2 years that you get certified if you don't do it before. And one option, it depends on what type of company you are. If you're an LLC, you can amend your articles of incorporation. But if you're a C Corp or an S Corp, you often, if the state that you operate in has benefit corporation legislation, which I think 30 some states currently have that, then you actually have to change your legal designation. A lot of people have a lot of questions about that, and I'm not a lawyer, so I can't like specifically comment to that, but I do know that it doesn't necessarily affect your tax filings because it's not a federally recognized designation for a business. So it's a state by state kind of thing, and the B Corp website will have, if you go in there, you can choose what state you're in and what type of business you have, and it'll let you know more specifics around what the legal requirement would mean for you.
Awesome. So let's talk a little bit about the B Impact Assessment. What does it look at in terms of what are the points you can get and what are they looking at in an organization to go through this impact assessment?
Yeah, so the assessment it's unique as far as assessments go, I would say, is because it's somehow found a way to assess any type of business at any size of business. We're talking about like it can assess a sole proprietorship and it can assess a multinational business. So the way that it's structured is pretty interesting, and you have to actually select, how many employees do you have and what type of business do you operate before you even get into the assessment, because there are different tracks and different questions that it will or will not ask you based on what type of business you operate in. So there's a total of 200 points that are possible on the B Impact Assessment, and you have to achieve 80. Now, like that sounds like an F, but actually, like a score of 80 is very difficult to achieve, and scores over 100 are pretty impressive to see.
Nice.
Some of the highest scores are in the like 130s and maybe even up a little bit above that, but that's a really incredible score. So just to kind of give you a little perspective there. And it's broken up into different sections. It'll ask questions that are really specific around, like, do you have this policy? Maybe it's like, do you have a discrimination and anti-harassment policy? Do you have a policy to support breastfeeding mothers? They'll ask a lot of questions like that. They'll also ask questions like, what is your lowest paid employee making? And what's the pay ratio between your highest paid employee versus your lowest paid employee? What kind of benefits do you offer your employees? What are the co-pays that your employees have to pay based on the health insurance that you provide, and how much of the coverage are you paying for directly? So that gets really specific around stuff like that. And there are things like they're called business impact models. So those are questions that actually you answer yes or no questions at the beginning of sections, and it may or may not open up an entire different section of questions that then you will have to go into more depth around. So those questions are getting more around like, what is the actual core purpose of the work that you're doing as a business? For example, are you serving underserved populations, or do the products or services that you offer have a direct, like, do you work with a lot of certified products, like certified organic or certified or like recycled materials? Are you doing a lot of toxin reduction? So those are like bigger chunks of points that you can get based on kind of the core work that your business is actually doing.
Cool. So you can get points for how you treat your employees, but also the type of like suppliers you use or the type of businesses that you do and the people you work with, which is really cool because it gives a consumer a really broader picture of what this manufacturer does that they might not know just by walking into the store.
Yeah, exactly. And the assessment is actually very transparent. So anybody can go look up the score of any B Corp in the B Corp directory, and it'll actually even break it down into the sections. Like, did they score higher in environment but lower in governance? Or did they score really high in workers? Or, you can actually see that as well. One of the main like core kind of values of the B Corp certification is to have like as much transparency as possible.
Awesome. And do they need to recertify every certain amount of years? I know you mentioned that there's a way to show where you could make improvements. Is there, if a manufacturer or a company does make improvements, is that something that they can sort of be proud of and talk about?
Yeah, so you have to recertify every 3 years. And the assessment actually does get updated on a regular basis as well. So it's fairly likely that you might be taking a different assessment the next time you take it, because they're always trying to, do continuous improvement around like what they're assessing. So yeah, you do have to recertify, and they do have like, they have like what they call best for the world. And so some of those are like, how much did you improve? And maybe, if you have improved the most out of, the past year of those that went through recertification, you might get listed on a list like that. Or if you have one of the highest scores in environment, you might get listed on the best for the world environment. So they do have like ways of recognizing people that are improving and ways of recognizing people that have gone like above and beyond of even, beyond the like level of baseline certification. They'll have ways of recognizing that as well.
That's awesome. So let's talk about why consumers and why designers should care about this. Does it sort of follow a larger trend we're seeing towards transparency, towards working with better products, but also wanting to favor manufacturers who are doing the right thing?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I have worked in the commercial design industry as well, and people actually really do want to see what they want to see the receipts. They'll be like, okay, so you say that you're environmentally conscious, you say that you're good for your employees, you say you do work with the community, but like, show me the receipts, like, show me exactly what that means for you. And I think having this assessment and having this certification, you can be really transparent about that. You can say, look, this is what we're doing. And it also, so people oftentimes will compare it to like LEED certification for buildings. Like, this is like a similar type of thing for businesses. But I think there is, an element of like really kind of engaging with the community around you as well. So I think businesses right now, I think there's a lot of desire to work with each other and collectively uplift one another. And that's really, really true in the B Corp community. There's a lot of kind of collaboration that's happening amongst people in the community as well. So I think people just want that in general, just for our human nature, but also just to like say, we're doing something that's making a difference. We can prove it. And we've seen that like customers are actually requesting that.
Yeah. So it's a way for companies to sort of prove that they're walking the walk.
Exactly.
Okay. Yeah. And consumers are asking for that, is what you're finding, is that the demand is there from consumers. And so manufacturers and companies are responding to that.
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, I don't have like specific numbers on that necessarily, but I think, when people are asking for, sustainable or community minded products and people that have been doing things that are actually beneficial, you actually have proof when you have the certification. So I think that's one way of putting it.
Yeah Great. So can you talk a little bit about what the future looks like for B Corps? Like, are there any cool trends you're seeing, or any ways that they're changing the assessment in a reaction to the market or market demands? Like, what are you seeing coming down the pike?
Yeah, so I think, some of the things that are changing we're kind of getting to that like tipping point of, the certification's been around for, going on 15 years. It definitely started out real small. It was a very niche thing. And, it slowly started to gain traction and slowly started to gain recognition across the world. This is an international certification, by the way. So I think what's happening is we're seeing more and more people recognize the B Corp brand, and more like large multinational companies becoming B Corp certified. Brands that people that anyone would recognize, like Patagonia, for example, Ben and Jerry's. These are brands that are certified B Corps. And so the more that happens, the more that people will recognize the brand of B Corp, and they'll be able to kind of use that as a way to guide their purchasing decisions. Another thing, kind of as far as the assessment goes, that I see kind of changing is there's been a huge effort to really move into creating more depth in the assessment around JEDI practices, so justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion. That is not just like one section that they do in the assessment. It's actually like kind of deeply ingrained throughout the assessment. So they've been really kind of trying to increase the depth of what they're assessing in those areas as well.
Yeah. Well, then it becomes something that is very baked in, rather than feeling like a checkbox that a company checks off. Because as we know, and I feel like with B Corps, it's really about, let's change the model of what it is to be a business. And so when you have diversity, equity, inclusion, and justice sort of in every part of your business, it changes the model of what it means to be in business. And so it's lovely to hear that B Corp is like, heck yeah, let's continue that trend and help people think of it that way rather than something else on the side.
Yeah, and actually making the case that this is all, like, that the B Corp certification is actually good for business, particularly in the case of justice, equity, diversity, inclusion, but also in the case for environmental stuff. So the idea is that this is not something that is even accessible to nonprofits. It's particularly a for-profit business certification. And with that in mind, we all know that in order to do the good that we want to do, we also have to be profitable. So it's like, there's this kind of idea, I think, in a lot of people that are very impact-driven minds, that maybe, okay, well, we have to feel a little bit bad about making too much money, right? But I think part of this is actually the more money we make, the more good we can do. And it is absolutely equalizing. It's not to say that profit matters less. It still matters for sure. And so it's just equalizing those things for sure.
Yeah, well, and it also sort of ends up proving the point a little bit that the more you're B Corp certified, the more consumers start to ask for it, the more they start to sort of vote with their dollars, which means that being B Corp certified is actually better for your business. And then everything just continues to cycle upwards.
Exactly.
I love that. So we always end every Transparency Tuesday with this question: how are you shaping the market, the royal you, and how is it shaping you?
That's a good one. I would say that B Corp certification in general is actually having quite a large impact on business across the board. We're starting to see things like last summer, the Business Roundtable announcement came from, 100-some major CEOs or CEOs of major companies. They're all like, oh, we should do this thing that's considering our impact and care about our employees and care about their environmental impact. And B Lab, the nonprofit that administers the assessment, took out a whole full page ad in the New York Times that was like, yeah, we've been doing this. Like, let's get to work.
Here we are.
Welcome. Come on over. Like, let's talk.
Yeah.
So I think in some ways, like, there's been a lot of shifting for business towards this more impact-driven space. And I think that the B Corp movement has had a huge impact on that. And I think as far as like, how is it shaping the B Corp movement? I think, we're all like so forced to exist in this world of capitalism, right? That we've basically had to like figure out how to make capitalism work. And so I think as far as like, how is the world shaping us? I think it's really kind of forcing us to like find a way to make this system that feels like it can't work for everyone find a way to make it work for everyone.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's sort of the they have a phrase for it. I want to say like something capitalism. It starts with a C, like comfortable capitalism, or like not the
conscious capitalism.
Conscious capitalism. Yeah, exactly. But I think it gets back to the compassionate. Thank you, Andrea. And so it really goes back to that model of it's not about if you're truly trying to be sustainable and transparent, it's not about making sacrifices, although sometimes it is, but you're really trying to prove that no, this is actually can work within the existing framework and you should do it, and here's why. Which is great. So designers, if you are ready to start working with some B Corps, heck yeah, I love it. It is a filter on our site in the impact under social sustainability. So you can start working with B Corps right this instant on tothesource.com. And for those of you tuning into the podcast, we'll throw a link into the show notes so you can do that as well. But basically what I hear is if consumers are asking for it, manufacturers will do it. So start prioritizing working with these B Corps or buying from B Corps, and we can just prove our point that B Corps are great.
Yeah, absolutely.
Great. I love it. Designers, if you'd like to register for another snack break, you can smash that register now button, and hopefully we'll see you again soon. Tomorrow we're talking countertops. I'm really excited for something completely different. But Kel, in the meantime, it was great to see you. It was great to see you and your cute little cat in the background there. Yeah. And hopefully we will be talking again soon, and we can talk more about B Corps. I love it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you so much. We'll see ya. Bye.
Nice to be here.